episode number 88 with Elliot Roe. Welcome to the Heads Up Poker Podcast. This is Steve Barton, and thank you for tuning in. I've got an extra special guest this week, none other than Elliot Roe. Welcome, Elliot.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming on. Thank you for coming on. Elliot is, I think the only way you would not know who Elliot is if this is the first time that you've tuned into this podcast. So if that's the case, welcome. If not, you know exactly who he is. And for the first-time listeners, could you give them a rundown of what you do, Elliot?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a mindset coach. Predominantly, I work with poker players. I also work with UFC fighters, stockbrokers, athletes, people like that. And all of my work is around using hypnotherapy and other life coaching techniques to help players improve the way they play at the table and remove any of the mindset leaks that are costing them money.
Yeah. Now, you and I have done a little bit of work. We did one session together. I've listened to all your tapes many, many times. And can you just kind of go over what a regular session would look like for a first-timer?
Yeah, so the first sessions are longer sessions. They're always 90 minutes. My standard sessions are an hour. And in that first session, we do a questionnaire about your personal history, your poker history, the mindset issues that you're having. And then we choose one of those mindset issues to do a hypnotherapy session on, where we work through those problems and try and get some resolution of those issues that you're struggling with at the table. And then usually at the end, we set homework. So that's what a first session would look like. Yeah.
And you have your own podcast. You've had quite a few big names on there. Some I'm a little jealous of. You've got Daniel Negreanu. You've got all sorts of people coming in. Olivia many times.
We've run pretty well in terms of guests. Yeah, we had Fedor, Daniel, Olivia Biscay, Mark Hearn, like Haxton. Yeah, we've done really well. We've run well from that side. Yes, we've been really good.
I was playing poker alongside your partner in crime, Tricia, out at the WSW.
Yeah.
Yeah, her and I were in a little six-man tournament, six max tournament out at Binion's, and that was cool. She was on my left, so unfortunately she had position, but it was still fun. We got to play at the same table for a couple hours.
She's good fun, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. So what have you been up to? How have the sessions been going? Like what percentage would you say you do sessions with poker players as opposed to
the others? At the moment, I would say it's about 80% poker.
Okay.
So it's very strongly poker right now, and that's because things have been going very, very well poker-wise. I had by far, the most successful summer, I would say, with my clients that I could have ever expected. I worked with Fedor, and I think he had something like a 12 million summer in Vegas, and Brian Rast won the Players Championship as well, and he's another client of mine. And then I had another person win another bracelet. So obviously that works really well in terms of advertising.
Yes.
and
did you have a percentage of any of them?
Unfortunately not. I wish I had a percentage, but they've been kind enough to give me testimonials. So even if I'm not on a percentage, the testimonials certainly help my business. So things are very, very busy from the poker side of things. And I'm enjoying it right now, and obviously to have that sort of, it was literally all I could have hoped for my clients this summer. It really, really went very, very well. So it was quite the series for me in Vegas this year.
Good. That's cool. What do you? How can I put this? What's the most common thing that people come to you about? If obviously people are buying your MP3s, and I'm selling them right alongside you. But when you do your sessions, what are some of the common things that players come?
It varies from the game type people play.
Okay.
A lot of the online guys, surprisingly enough, it's not so much tilt; it's more about motivation and procrastination.
Oh.
So they're struggling with actually doing the work or doing the study, and quite a few of the sessions will be on those sorts of issues. With the live players, I would say there are more. It probably is more often the tilt type issues. But yeah, obviously it still comes up with the online players. But I would say percentage-wise, probably motivation, procrastination, not understanding why they're struggling so much to put the work in that they know they should be, is probably the most dominant thing that I cover. And then obviously there's things like anxiety when deep, tilting, frustration with bad beats and things. But certainly motivation is a big part of what the online players are looking to work on.
Yeah. That was definitely mine. The anxiety when I got deep in a tournament. I know when we got into our session, one of the first things that came up for me was that as soon as I make a final table, that was like the green light for me to go crack a beer. And I knew logically, this is retarded. Like, why am I doing this? But the one time I need to buckle down and focus and really, concentrate, I'm basically just handcuffing myself. And I wasn't sure why that was, but as we got into the session and, we started you kind of, with your soft English voice, kind of put me into the trance. I realized, I think it was after the session, I realized that it wasn't that this was just a habit that I had come into. It was that I was feeling this anxiety or this, I guess anxiety is the word, anxiety when I get to a final table. And the way I was dealing with it was to, go have a beer.
Yeah, and that's something that comes up a lot with people as well. It is to some extent a bit of a self-sabotage issue, because obviously you're putting yourself in a position that, yes, your anxiety is lower, but you're not going to be playing as well. And also, what comes up often with people in these situations is that having a beer takes the pressure off, because if you lose, you can say, well, I was drinking. So any mistake, you have an automatic excuse built in. So lots of players do these sorts of things.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was definitely eye-opening for me, and I remember as we went into the session, a time came up when I was a little kid, and I actually had two brothers at one point in my life, but one of them died when I was really young. And I remember sitting in the chair, and I was holding my little brother. He was only a few months old at the time. And I remember my mom telling me that he was sick and that he might not be around much longer. And 2.5 years old, I didn't completely understand what she was talking about. But that was the last memory I have of him, and the last time I saw him. And somehow that equated to me feeling anxiety at the final table of a poker tournament, and our session brought that out, and it was very emotional. I mean, I remember I started crying when we were going through our session, and it's definitely not for the lighthearted. But I remember you telling me that most people do cry, especially on the first session.
Yeah, so my beliefs in terms of where issues are coming from is that there are often these sorts of issues in the background, that we're all fighting against things that have taught us to feel a certain way or act a certain way. And as we work through those issues, it brings up and releases that emotion. So we start with the anxiety the person's feeling at the table, and then I ask them to link back to where that's coming from. And these memories just pop up into your mind. And I mean, I'm sure certainly you weren't expecting to be talking about that in our session. It's quite unlikely consciously you thought that would be one of the things that comes up. But then these random events from our deep past, usually from childhood, come up. And then as we work through those, we start to we start to basically release that emotion. And for some people, that does come out as crying. A lot of my day, I'm making people cry, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Is a big part of my day. But it is something that, as I say, it does come up a lot. It does happen a lot. And, as we release those emotions, that's typically where you then see the change in the situation at the table. So as we've released those emotions, the trigger isn't there that used to be there that was causing the problem. And as we've resolved and worked through some of the root causes, that's where we see the difference in the way you feel at the table.
Yeah.
So, did you feel that at all? Did you feel any change in the anxiety post the session?
Oh my God, yeah. I only got to test it once when I was out at the WSOP because I played, I don't remember if it was 8 or 9 tournaments. But anyways, the last one I played, it was, I made it, out of 1,000 people, I made it down, I finished 11th. And
right.
When we were getting down to 19, 20 people, when we were down to 2 tables, that would have been the point where I'm looking for the cocktail waitress. And that thought never even crossed my mind. It was, I remember being down to like 14 or 15, and I kind of look around. I'm like, wow, we're at 2 tables. Wow, we're almost to the final table here. And I thought to myself, I'm like, I haven't even thought about getting a beer. And I was totally calm. I felt no anxiety, and I was just cool. It was.
And it seems pretty bizarre, doesn't it, that resolving an issue based around, a brother dying when you were very, very young could have an impact. But this is a relatively normal result of those sorts of sessions. That's what I see quite frequently.
It was amazing. It really was. I looked around at the 10 other people that were left. I remember we had just gone on break, and then we came back from break, and I busted, I think it was the second and third hand after break. But I remember looking around at the 2 tables, and everyone was obviously anxious. They were looking up at the payouts, and they were, looking around at each other, looking at everyone else's stack size. And I was doing the same as far as looking around at the other players and studying them. But I never once looked at the payouts. All I knew was that first place was $33,000. That's it. I didn't care how much I was laddering up. I was just looking around. I was thinking to myself, I got 13 big blinds. He has 14. She has 12. He has 4. I was just like a machine, just calculating stuff. And there was just complete calm and tranquil the entire time. It was, and I'd never felt that before. That was what was so cool about it. It was really, really neat.
That's exactly what I want to hear.
Yeah, no, it's true, man.
Yeah.
What you're doing is working, and it's making a difference. It really is.
Man, as I say, that's awesome, and it's quite, it's nice because obviously most people, they're not sharing this very personal stuff after the session. So the fact that you're willing to share that, and explain that there was this emotional issue in the background, and that just by working through and resolving that, you feel an almost instant change at the poker table. And, that's what my concept is, and that's what I like to try and show, because generally, as we work through these things, life does become an awful lot easier.
Yeah. My goal when I started this podcast, Elliot, was that basically my whole reason for doing it was I just want to get better at poker, and I want to help anyone else along the way that I can. And I really see a lot of value in your sessions and your MP3s, and they've. I want to share it with anyone that I can that's willing to listen. It's
I have to say thank you.
Yeah. No, I remember you asking me before when we were talking. You said, I've never really tried to monetize the podcast. You're basically just kind of using it as a, to get yourself out there and known. And you said, is it profitable? And I got to thinking about it, and I was like, I know I'm making money every month. I know the podcast is profitable, but I never really broke it down. And so I kind of went through and I took an average of what we get from your MP3s and the TPE subscriptions and the Amazon affiliate links. When we have a little Amazon affiliate link when someone wants to Christmas shop or buy something for their nephew's birthday, if they click on that, then the podcast gets a few percent of whatever they purchased. And then I subtracted the expenses of Andrew, who's our editor, and Jacob for designing the website and advertising, and Lipson, the hosting website, and the odds and ends for software recording. And I think it comes out to about a solid $20 an episode, which comes out to about $7 an hour.
Well, if you're enjoying it, that's all good.
It's better than if we didn't have any affiliates or anything. I'd probably be costing a couple $100 a month. But like I said, my goal was never to really make money at this. It was just thanks to you, actually, I've had Jonathan Little on the podcast. Some other guests I've had are Alex Fitzgerald and Greg Raymer. And I think more important than that is the network that I've been able to build doing this, the study groups, the students. I never would have met you if I didn't have this podcast. And all the friends that I've made, that I get to meet through poker, it's just been awesome. So it probably took me a little while to get back to your question, but yeah, I don't make a huge amount of money from it, but I'm not in it for the dough, and the fact that I'm able to do this for not free, but I'm actually the podcast is making a little bit each week is pretty damn cool.
Yeah, it covers a lunch, and you've also got this situation there where, as you say, you're meeting people in the industry who can really help your game.
Yes,
and that's
true.
A big deal. That might at some point, it might sound silly, but one of these people you've met and someone in your study group, and you've learned something from them, and you end up on a final table, and that's the difference, what they've taught you between winning and not winning the tournament. That could make every podcast you've done very, very profitable. It changes the hourly a lot, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, every week I learn something new. Every week,
yeah.
And when the podcast comes out, even though I'm on every single one, I still re-listen to it. And there's some things that in the moment when I'm recording the podcast I may not pick up, but when I go back and listen to it again, I'm like, that really makes sense. Maybe I shouldn't have bet the river there. But one thing I'm kind of curious about, at least when it comes to hypnosis in your sessions and your MP3s, is are you familiar with the like the 3-stage brain or the triune brain?
I'll be honest, no, that's not a book I've read or process I've heard about. So.
Okay, basically what it says is that there's 3 different parts of our brain. There's the lizard brain, or the core brain, the one that controls breathing,
the raw emotion.
Yeah, breathing, digestion. I'm hungry now. I need to mate. Basic function. Yeah. And then there's another part. What's the second stage? And now that I brought this up, I can't remember. I think it's called the mammalian brain, and that is that's what like dogs and cats have. They're very social creatures, and that is social hierarchy and like that. And then there's the frontal cortex, which is us as people. Now we can do mathematics and write songs and paint pictures. Is your sessions or your MP3s, are they talking to different parts of that brain? Or if you haven't heard of this model before, then maybe you really don't.
I mean, so it's a different model that I would be using in terms of the conscious and the subconscious mind.
Okay.
I mean, when they have actually recently released a study on hypnotherapy showing that with people who are definitely hypnotized, in an MRI scanner, different parts of their brain are shutting on and off. So there is actually now evidence to show that hypnotherapy is a different state to a normal waking state. There's no question mark because it can be seen on a computer program when you're in an MRI. Now, the way I like to describe it to people is we have like a background program running, which is the subconscious mind, and that's what the hypnotherapy is talking to effectively. So, as I said, in our normal conversation, so we talk about your anxiety at the table.
Yeah.
And I'll say, where do you think that's coming from? There is virtually zero chance that you would talk about the death of your brother in your childhood.
Yeah.
It would be highly unlikely that would come up on your mind.
Yeah.
Now, when we turn that into talking to the subconscious, once we've reached that state of trance or relaxation or whatever you want to call it, those memories come up almost instantaneously because the subconscious knows why it's feeling anxious, and therefore it can show us why it's feeling anxious. So these things that would be very hidden if we were doing normal talking therapy typically show up, like you saw, often in a first session or within a couple of sessions. Things that are very deep in the past are flashing up before your eyes. And it's quite hard to describe to someone who hasn't gone through a session. So, you have to take it with a bit of a... you have to take my word for it, I guess, if you're listening to this and you've never gone through this sort of process. But effectively what we're doing is going into the core programming of the mind and fixing things that have been learned incorrectly in childhood. And then once they're fixed, these problems don't show themselves in the same way. So it's sort of like doing brain surgery, I guess, with language. And rather than physical brain surgery, we're just fixing the logic or the systems that have been created ineffectively through our youth. And basically that's where a lot of these things come from, like any anxieties and things like that. Typically, they're all created in the youth because, if we want to make it very basic, if we're in the jungle and our mum screams at a lion, we need to learn very quickly that our mum screaming at it is something to be scared of, so then we pick up a fear of lions. And that's how babies and young children work. And although we no longer have lions to be scared of in the city or what have you, we're still learning our anxieties that way as something, as a survival mechanism. And this is just a way of sort of clearing out the unuseful things like that we've picked up along the way. Does that make sense in terms of a description?
It does, yeah. I read, it was a magazine article. I can't remember where I read it, but I read that we're born with only two fears, and one of those fears is the fear of falling, and the other fear
loud noises.
Is loud noises. Yeah, okay, you've heard the same one.
Yeah, and it's complete, and everything else is learned. One of the interesting ones that I get, and it really matches up very well to the jungle thing I was just describing then. I don't do these sessions much, and I don't really enjoy doing them. So if this is your issue, find another hypnotherapist. But when people come with fear of spiders, because I like doing optimization and performance stuff. But I have had friends of the family, fear of spiders, things like that. Fear of spiders, I can tell you now where that came from, if you have a fear of spiders out there. And every time I do it with someone, it ends up being their mum overreacting to a spider when you're very young.
Really?
And it's just, every single time. But I've done one of the fear of spider sessions. It's been my mum's jumped onto the sofa, or she's screamed when she's seen one, or she's had to get my dad to kill it. I think I've had one instance where it was the dad, but it was only one instance where it was the dad. But basically, it's when a child is very young and an adult who they consider an adult they should be listening to or taking seriously, when they over-respond, that's what creates the fear. And then usually we have the secondary events that then make that fear solidify in the mind. So we have so we have the root cause event, and then we have secondary events that teach the child that they were correct to be scared. So we'll usually have they'll talk about something like that with the parent screaming or overreacting, and then another situation where it was a kid at school has thrown a spider in their hair or something like that.
Yeah.
And then, say with someone with elevator fears, oftentimes there'll be a getting locked in a cupboard as a kid. So it's claustrophobia is the initial root cause. And then often there is an issue in an elevator or something similar, which has then solidified that and turned it into a true fear.
Interesting.
So that's how the process works. It's actually relatively basic. Once because we're effectively just following the subconscious back. And as you said, all of these fears are learned, therefore they have to be learned from somewhere. Your subconscious must be aware of where it learnt it from, otherwise you wouldn't be scared of it. So it can just bring up that information if we create the right mindset for that to come up. And that's what the hypnotherapy sessions do.
I remember when we did our session, I was telling you that I see I described him as a life coach or a therapist, but after describing him for about 30 seconds, you said, yeah, he's basically a hypnotherapist. So, okay.
Yeah.
And he does the same kind of thing. It's like a breathing session, and within a few minutes, it's almost like once you enter that kind of trance state, it's like your brain is. I was describing this to my wife the other day. It's almost like you have a file folder of everything that ever happened to you, and as soon as you ask, well, where did this come from? It's like your brain can just go to this specific file folder, boom, pull it out, and that's it.
Yeah, and I mean, for some people, it's incredibly vivid, and they'll almost relive the events. Different people, some people just have an awareness of what it is. Other people see it from the first person. Other people see it from the third person. But almost everyone will just find these root causes come up. And usually they are much more emotional than you would expect them to be. So, I'll have people, I've had guys in their 50s crying over, someone stealing their lunch age 5.
Yeah.
And, there's no way they believe they'd have that sort of emotional response to it. But all of that emotion has been stored, and it's been causing issues for the last however many 45 years for them. And as they work through that, all of that emotion is released. And then whatever the symptom that trapped emotion was causing seems to be, I don't like to use the word cured, but healed or improved. So, it's not saying it's going to absolutely remove something forever, but you do notice changes very quickly. And oftentimes these are lifelong changes. Yeah,
and that little instance of when they were 5 years old and their lunch was getting stolen could be if they're a poker player, they're sitting at the table and they just always think that somebody's bullying them or someone's always trying to take a shot at them when really they're just playing their cards.
Exactly, and that's a big thing that comes up when I'm working with players who can't cope with being 3-bet. Then oftentimes that will be a bullying issue because they're perceiving the 3-bets as being picked on rather than perceiving it as that is that person's style of play, and they're allowed to do that, and it's something to adjust to rather than be offended by. And that comes up, interestingly, it comes up a lot more with live players than online players, but it certainly comes up very frequently in terms of the sessions that I'm doing.
Interesting. Cool. Well, I think we could probably wrap it up here. Did you want to let people know where they could, they can get a hold of you very easily through all the links that I throw in every week.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing is if you head to pokermindcoach.com, and you can download a free hypnotherapy MP3 there, or I think they can click on a link next to on your site, and it'll take them through to it. And also, I haven't told you about this yet, Steve, but I'm going to be doing I'm launching a video series on focus and improving the amount of volume that you play.
Oh, cool.
And that's going to be released in the next. It's like a 20 video series with a 39-page workbook that goes with it and things, and that's going to be released relatively soon in the next week or two. And That's got bonus content from Fedor Holtz, Olivier Biscay, Daniel DeVores, Matt Berkey, and a load of other pros as well. So that's got some really interesting stuff in it. So keep an eye out for that, everybody, and we'll give you a link to that too, Steve, so that if anyone from your podcast is buying it, you're getting your affiliate fee on there as well.
Awesome.
So
thank you,
Steve. If you're listening here, make sure you click on Steve's link. Don't buy it directly from my website.
Well, thank you.
We've got to keep it fair.
Yes. Well, up my hourly to $8.50.
Hey, let's see what we can do.
Yes. Right on. Well, thank you for coming on, Elliot. And,
no problem at all. And thanks, as I say, thanks for talking about it all and inviting me. Hopefully the listeners, find it interesting and it's not too odd, because I know hypnotherapy doesn't sit with everyone really well because they've seen the TV shows and things, but it is just effectively a guided meditation process where we're looking to solve fears that we've created ourselves or whatever issue it is, and we just work through it.
Yeah, I can vouch from personal experience that it just works. I mean, I've got my routine every time before I start a session. I listen to one of your tapes, and it actually the one time I didn't listen to one of your tapes before I started playing. Maybe this is an issue that we need to do another session on, but I tilted. I went into a rebuy tournament, and I must have fired like 6 bullets buying in with like only 8 big blinds, and when I look back after I finished the session, I'm like, what the hell just happened? And my buddy even messaged me. He's like, yeah, that Jack 10 suited was a really bad shove. And I'm like, thanks, bro. I thought to myself, what the hell was that? And then I looked through and I'm like, I didn't do my normal warm-up session. Like, what? There must have been some other thing going on.
I mean, and often when people don't do the warm-up, it's because something even worse, something's going on in the background that means you're super distracted, because if you've forgotten to do the warm-up, more likely than not, you're not in the right mindset to then be able to play your best poker.
Yeah, my wife and I got in an argument that morning. Nothing serious, just stupid little. I honestly couldn't even tell you what it was about, but I do remember that we made up that night. But during the day when I was playing, it was not. I was definitely on my D+ game.
Yeah, not the time to buy in.
B+. B+ might be a little different.
Okay, man. Well, as I say, thank you so much for having me on, and I'll get you all of that stuff over so you can send it out. And if anyone's interested in checking out the details of that course, I'd say make sure you click on Steve's link.
Right on. Awesome. Well, thank you, Elliot. Thank you for coming on, and you have a good rest of the week, man.
Cheers, mate.
Okay, and thank you for tuning in. Here is your weekly motivational speech. I'm telling you right now,